Good day. My name is Reg Hunter. I'm with Fiatech, and we're building a series of short videos that relate to various different areas. This video relates to change order reduction on the part of owners. The PAT, for productivity advancement target for that, is 70% reduction. And we're fortunate today to have Saul Hernandez with us from Era Energy. He's going to talk about what they've done and how they've gone about reducing change orders and their philosophy and perspectives, and show you real examples of their successes. And so, welcome, Saul. I thank you very much for being willing to do this recording, and thank you very much, obviously, for your continued involvement in Fiatech.
Thanks, Reg. Appreciate the opportunity to engage in this process. We are here very much strong believers in what Fiatech is pursuing with the PAT teams, and so I'm glad to be able to talk to you this morning about an owner's view of change orders and how we at Era Energy have embraced taking responsibility for our futures, right, and be able to be sustainable as a company. And one of those areas was dramatically reducing our change orders. A little bit of a history. So, like anyone else, we're a heavily industrial process company, upstream exploration and production company, and fair amount of construction and capital projects that go on in our business. And so, like everyone else, we experience cost overruns and delays and change orders that were seeming to be endless and just continue to grow. And that was a combination of the complexity of our engineering projects as it became much more automated, and in keeping with regulations, both the federal and state levels. Those projects tended to get layers and layers of complexity that were being difficult to deal with. So we came upon a point where a particular large project we had was programmed to be at X dollars, and it ended up being 2X, and that was a come to Jesus moment for the company as a whole. So that's where we took a look at ourselves and said, we're allowing this to happen because we've allowed ourselves to become victims, right? So stop blaming others, and let's start accepting responsibility for our own destiny. So that's what we did. So what we went ahead, we kind of took a look at our processes, and this kind of a bit of an eye chart. So we took a look at the very top line here. Kind of we're very big believers in Lean and Lean Six Sigma. So we went and took a hard look internally on ourselves and performed a Kaizen and followed the value stream. How do we build our capital projects? How do they come into being? So we really walked through all the steps, the major steps of a capital project process. And so you see across generically the same processes. You might see some software names, what have you. That's irrelevant, because actually this map that I produce here is 8 years old, and since then we've actually have changed some of the specific softwares we may be using to get us where we want to go. But the concepts are essentially the same. So what we looked at is the genesis for a lot of the change orders that we were generating was from the handoffs between one group and the next. So as the plant or facility grew from being just a concept to being a physical operating plant, and as it matured through that process, there were handoffs, different groups working and focusing on the work it took to mature that design to implementation. And so all those relationships that went along with it, what we found out in our discussions is that it was a very, very siloed kind of effect. And what we found is people weren't sharing what their view of the world, how they understood the world to be. And so what we embarked upon is saying, well, because most of the people who were involved in the value creation were really visual workers. They had to see the work, and particularly the construction crews. I mean, they look at drawings, look what have you, but in their minds and in discussing, interviewing them, they rehearse mentally in their minds how the work was coming together. They see the end in mind and then go about building it in their mind. So in their mind, they already have a picture or a model, but the problem was it was their model and the one they had in their mind. So that's where we started picking on 3D modeling. 3D modeling had already been a part of our company for quite a while, but it wasn't as prevalent as we would like it. And fortunately, the state of the art had progressed to the point where it was relatively cheap and inexpensive to actually produce a 3D model and then use it. So that's where we went down to the next version. And really, it was a natural fit. You know, everybody thought, you know, the construction folks will never use it. You know, they'll never adapt to it. You'd rather have the typical 2D flat drawings. And in reality, and what we found is on the left is as we went out there and talked to the crews and see how they actually work, they were already creating an augmented reality environment for themselves, right? They got a copy of the overhead photo. They took the P&ID drawings or the plot plans and overlaid them over the photo. And so they at least had an idea of geographically where things were going, general arrangement. But then they went on their own and using their cell phones, you know, they started taking photos or even their cameras, digital cameras, of those points where they were seriously confused about. And so they were looking for elaboration and clarification on their own. So they started developing these augmented reality on a two-dimensional scale of their world. And so when we offer them on the right a three-dimensional model, they were elated and they saw the value of it very rapidly, because not only could you don't have to go out and necessarily walk around and it was always a static photo, they were able to actually look at it three-dimensionally. We took this back to the operations folks and said, we want to have you have buy-in early on in the process to help us make sure that the model of what's going to be built meets your needs. And that was a change, because in the past it was a concept, you know, some engineers put together, went to the designer, he put it on paper without really conferring with anyone else. With the construction folks, they built it as best they could, as close as they could to what was desired. And then it went to the operations folks, and usually by the time we got the operations folks who had no say-so on the design, it doesn't work for them. So early on, we changed our work processes that we had all of the 4 stakeholder communities in early on the entire process. So we had designers, we had construction people, we had operations and maintenance people in on the design team and the engineering team early on. So we would get and tap into their body of knowledge on how to configure some of these plants, and then how can we arrange some of this equipment in such a way as to actually made work easier or more efficient for not only the construction folks, but for the operations and maintenance folks. So a lot of the lessons learned from the past, we're able to tap into it. And because we're able to do that, we were able to reduce dramatically the cost of installation, the cost of operation, and the cost of maintenance over time. And that's because we were able to get everybody in early on the design. And having a 3D model and enabling people to see, right, change in meaning of communication, they can actually see what they were looking at to help them to actually get better at producing a much more efficient process. So efficient on design, nothing gets designed unless it gets reviewed by an operations folk, and then we lock it down. After he signs off on it, then we move it forward. And the same thing with the construction folks. They had an opportunity to look at the design and make some decisions, or help make some decisions that enabled the construction folks to put things in place, so that we don't have to rip things out to put things back in. And so that's a lot of those kind of changes. So those just incorporating those people early on and taking the time to put them in there. We went so far as to actually went to our normal body of mechanical contractors that did our work, and we asked them, we're still in the design phase, but we're willing to pay you, even though you may or may not get this contract, we want from you, and we'll pay for this, to have one of your superintendents that would have been involved in this process, in this contract later on, to be in on the design team and be a consultant to us. So we did that, and we had 3 or 4 of our different mechanical contractors actually provide us superintendents to help us do the design work. And so it was a best practice between the 4. They worked together collaboratively, and came up with a design that no matter who won the contract, it was a well-designed construction process. Same thing with operations. All the operational folks were there as well. So that enabled a lot of things. So moving on, for the procurement process, having a model enabled us to prevent a lot of the change orders that were coming out of fabrication shops. And so we engaged fabrication companies that had the sophisticated skills to take a 3D model and work from a 3D model. And then working between our designers and their designers, again, pulling in their thoughts and their ideas on how they would construct it and where was value-added changes. We would change them here and take it back to the master model and make changes there. But at least working designer, we're able to eliminate things. And then while they built it, when they finally constructed it, one of the strict rules we had was we were going to build to the design. Not the design was just a go-by or suggestion, and we would catch up with the red lines later on. The goal was to have no red lines, and the way we have red lines is to have discipline and execution. So case in point, up in the upper right-hand corner here, you see a pipe spool. We had over 5 miles of pipe spools, all fabricated off-site, 2,000 miles away from California, and they did the work out there, and then we sent them the design models. But before any of the spools left out, we actually went back and scanned them and make sure that they were per the design. And you can see here, this particular pipe spool, there was a turn that wasn't caught correctly, and so we were able to catch that before it actually left. Actually, we didn't catch it. The firm caught it on their own. They just shared with us, as part of their QA/QC process. They started incorporating scanning. We paid for it initially, and then after a while, they incorporate that as the best practice themselves. And so they shared with us, here's what we did. And so they actually sent us the correct spool, not the incorrect spool, but they caught that before it came to us. Then on installation, on the lower two right-hand drawings, as the mechanical crews are starting to install things, before they locked it down, before they put the shoes on the piping systems and locked them in place, or the clamps and locked them in place, we ran through with a scan, double-checked that the installation was per the design. And here you can see where what's coded in red is the actual, and what's gray is what the design was intended to be. So you can see that this particular series of pipes were all off by about 6 to 8 inches. So before they locked them down, we actually have to move it back over. Doing just those little things, going slower, we actually ended up going faster, because just taking the time out to do the scans and double check that the flange layups were correct enabled us to avoid and to redo all the subsequent piping that these particular flanges connected to. And that's what we found as we went through that process in designing this new process. We were looking for these handoffs, and one of these handoffs is what was designed wasn't necessarily being procured and fabricated, and wasn't necessarily being installed. It was a handoff of a deviation, and then handed off again. That those deviations exacerbated themselves, and it wasn't a arithmetic change, it was a geometric change every time these handoffs went off. So you can see where on the two corners, the upper left and upper and lower right, the scans, double checking the equipment, and you can see where on the one in the lower right it was pretty much perfect. And so it allowed us to have the work that came from fabrication shops and the installation go seamless. So our biggest change is that avoiding all the change orders by having that level of work and discipline in the work. So you can see when we actually installed it, it's kind of hard to tell the difference other than by the color of the drawings. What was installed and what was designed, they're almost inseparable. They literally laid over one over the other. So that was the desired end state. And so in this particular project, dimensionally, we only had 5-dimensional bus out of the 15,000 connection points. We only had 5 where we had to go back and cut the flange off and reorient it. And that was a couple places where they stuck through the QA/QC process. But 5 out of 15,000, I think that's a significant number change. And so that's the kind of quality of change that we were able to initiate. So that's more importantly. And the proof of the pudding, on the left you have here the design model. and on the right, the actual, and this is a Google Earth photo, satellite photo, and you can literally lay them over, and it's dimensionally one and the same. And then it was through looking at our processes and seeing that, the key was communication and having everybody see exactly the same thing and having everybody's engagement early on, as early as possible in the process. So engaging the workers, engaging the operators, engaging the designers and the engineers, all the stakeholders, including our EHS folks, the safety, they were part of the process of the discussions. So whatever concerns they had were incorporated in design early on. And then those were then discussed with the construction folks and the operations folks to make sure they were on board and understood the constraints. So it's having those discussions, taking the time out to have the discussions actually allowed us to save costs on change orders and also decrease time in construction. Adding that much extra work actually ended up cutting our time by as much as 25% on any component of the project. And then compared to what was conservative at the time, using the methods of time, the cost estimates were anywhere from, the actual final was anywhere from 25 to 50% cheaper than what other outside auditors had thought we were going to be able to do this project on. So by enabling the community of stakeholders to work together early on and having a common set of a common operating picture enabled a lot of higher level order communication to be had between the different communities, and we removed those walls, and so now they're sharing a lot of information. And the beauty of this is that this particular medium, the 3D model and the 3D scanning, the scans have not become part of the operational world, and that's part of the asset management, asset data management process that we're creating, so that any future construction, any future amendments or changes, they have a starting point of the model. The model now is the red line. It's our record, and therefore we use it to enable any future construction. This has probably been the apex of our capability. All other projects are starting to come up to this level, and it's an education process because it reverberates through the system. Getting operators to be part of the design phase was a change in culture. Getting construction folks to be part of the design change was part of the culture. And then having open communication between the engineers and designers and construction folks was a change in culture. Instead of having the traditional adversarial kind of roles they took on, it was more of a collaborative environment we were trying to push forward, and we've been successful. So a good chunk of this is about recognizing that there's a personal relationship and a personal set of communications that goes on, and by enabling people to have one common frame of reference, the model, enable us to reduce the change orders as well. And with that.
Okay, well, that's Salt. As usual, I really enjoy your points and perspectives. I just have a couple really quick questions. As you know, we have these multiple productivity advancement targets. There's an interactive project planning, which is sort of what you touched on as well. In addition to reducing change orders, there's so much interaction between all of these initiatives. I think it's great. One of the things, obviously, we're doing within the PATS is capturing what constitutes a solution suite that a company, an organization should consider in order to be able to achieve these performance objectives. And so obviously you guys are members of Fiatech, and one of the things we're hoping to do as we progress through the various PATs is have your expertise and knowledge and be involved with us. Pretty much everything that I've seen on capital projects obviously touches on models, but the reduction to practice and capturing the benefits is something that I've never really heard quite like this, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And I'm looking forward to you being involved with our productivity advancement teams in refining these PATs and putting substance to each one of the enablers of success. And thank you very much. Do you have any other comments that you'd like to share?
No, we see the value in getting the whole industry going down this path, and so we're more than willing to support and continue to support these initiatives because it's in growing our capabilities collectively as we're going to get better all together. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today and speak with our audience today. And I
Yep.
hope they took away some value from the discussion.
Yep. And we'll be inviting people that have expressed interest in participating in various PATs to review these assessment tools, attributes, the enablers, and we're progressing down a path to doing engagement. So thank you for your time. I know you're really pressed for stuff, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Reg.
All right. Take care.